I've scared myself. We scared our dog last week. I tell you what, that the dog was scared of the bass. I thought, we can't play this ever again. Anyway, this is Brendan, previously known as the Time Muddler, on this Mothering Sunday of 10th of March 2024. From his orbit in this sense sphere, adjudicating on all things Doctor Who. Now, I hope I find you well and looking forward to concluding the weekend with some fiery debates, some fun segments, including a desert island matrix. Oh yeah, I did the mashup. Our space age Snog, Marry and Avoid with female villains and female historical characters from previous Who. The latest news from our Doctor Who Dispatches segment. Keep an eye out for the Strokers and Nobby Nobot and the Who Pits, who might appear for some mischief and mayhem. You have to keep an eye. But let's not hang around in this temporary orbit that I'm in. Let's start the countdown to this Sunday and actually start with a Sunday sermon. I thought, well, it is Sunday. I do need to actually kind of, have a little moment and have a little Doctor Who moment. So here we come with mine. I'm going to kind of embody Reverend Wainwright, if you remember him from Curse of Fenric, and a bit of Demons and Devil's End. And anyway, enough of that. Come on, cue music. Sunday sermon. God, I'm up on myself, aren't I? Sorry, right, okay. Reverend Wainwright, there we go. Right. My little speech tonight, little brief speech before I bring all the panel on and we start firing up on all cylinders. We're talking about female representation. And let's be honest, with Jodie Whittaker, she wasn't given that Doctor-defining scene and speech, was she? I can't remember it. I mean, I go back, Curse of Peladon. I used to love the John Pertwee Doctor. He loved it. Telling off, being ambassadorial, telling off all the delegates. I used to love Colin Baker, telling off the Time Lords. I should have been here. I was fighting Daleks and Cybermen. I should have stayed here. Holding the moral high ground, being superior, being a bit the authority figure, sometimes a bit establishment, sometimes a bit too close to that, sometimes patrician, let's be honest. But all the time, a safe pair of hands and your Doctor. I remember Tom Baker's Doctor, actually, not the Have I a Right speech. He did have some good speeches, but I remember him talking to Mogran in the Khaled government and having a good chat to them there and listening to his voice and how he tried to create a political argument to win a case. I remember the Zygon inversion with Peter Capaldi. Fab. Really took them on and really did hold a room. Doctor-defining moment. And on a night when we're talking about female representation in Doctor Who, it is a shame, and it's not Jodie Whittaker's fault, that she never got that moment. And I suppose when we're going to talk tonight about female representation and powerful women in Doctor Who and powerful characters, please help me if I've missed that. Now, let me bring in my friends, my panel. So one by one, here we go. You see, it does this again. Hello, Rachel.
Hi.
This will do this. It makes people big and small and all the rest of it. I'll just make sure I've got everybody lined up.
So I got my 5 minutes of fame. That's fine.
That's it.
Oh, that's better.
Everybody ends up kind of winking and nudging and everything. Hi, Timescales.
Hello. Good morning.
Good to see you. Good that we've got our time zones all kind of connected. And we've obviously got Cinnamon here, and there may be a time lag. We'll work it through. But good to see you all. Well, as you know, if you've been watching our show before, I do like to test you out on your Doctor Who credentials. You can't just come on the show and just kind of hold forth. I do need to check a few things out. And I normally do that with our puppets. And so if I can just line up my puppet item. Basically, because we're looking at female representation, we do need to look at, to be honest, companion conundrums and problems and scenes they've been in. So if I just kind of set myself up here, and we'll just see if everybody's able to answer the questions as we go. Right, here we go. Right, let's have a look. Now, which story is this from? We're talking about companions in Doctor Who. It's low budget. High on ideas, Have a look. There you go. Which companion story is this? Which companion is this? I mean, don't look at skin color or anything. It's the only female puppet I've got. Any ideas? You can shout them out because we'll be here all night.
Looks like Yaz, doesn't it? It looks
Well,
like Yaz.
It could look like Yaz, but it's the only puppet I could find, Rachel. So your only clue, because otherwise you'll be forever. Yeah, somebody's saying is the knives and cutlery around her.
Oh God.
Nobody. Oh, you see, this is the level of it, Rachel. You soon get it. Here we go. There you go.
Oh, really?
You see, so that's the level, Rachel. All right, and that's the level time scales. Hugh knows this, and Cinnamon knows this. So let's just try one more at the moment. That was obviously that.
Well, obviously that's Mel.
Which companion story is this? So, what's she up to in our low budget scenario?
I don't know.
I know. She's not trying to
doing very well at the moment, Anna.
Well, I mean, time scales. Are you starting to wonder you're on the wrong program?
Maybe I am. Yeah.
You read my mind. Yeah, I'm wanting to say Rose.
You're saying Rose?
when she's like trapped on the outside.
It's about to do the thing, and she's about to
Right.
flip over. Yeah, I can get that.
All right. This is when right, okay, panel. This is when I get worried because you've all gone down one other. So here we go. There's another scene, better from the moment, but it was obviously
that's what I was thinking. I was thinking that.
Ah, right.
Cinnamon, bail me out sometimes. Yeah. So you see, you've got to. I know this game is tricky because you've got to guess the story on low budget and guess what's in my brain, and this is really problematic. So here's the next one then. There is a clue there.
Is that from the first one?
There you go, Rachel. We've
warmed Barbara?
up
now. Right, it must be.
In the Daleks.
Is that the classic? Is that the absolute classic view?
There you
Where
go.
it is that?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I didn't entirely suck.
No. It's my imagination that's the problem. Okay.
I think that's one of your best, Brendan's. I think that was superb.
I thought the Abominable Snowman one was the best last week.
I don't really like that one, but
right. What's this one then?
Wait, are they all from Classic?
Not everyone is, no,
Okay.
but most of them are, yeah.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, good God.
Is this the plastic sort of dandelion that tries to suffocate Joe?
That's Joe Grant being suffocated by the plastic, yes.
Ah.
Oh.
And it's not obviously, it's hard to find that shot, and maybe there's a good reason why. Archibald Lazarus had Joe Grant, Cybermat Strikes had Terror of the Autons. Just above that, I had FU. Yes, I know it's a hard one to say, but you had Terror of the Autons. There's a few. Yep, you're on it now. You've warmed up now. Oh, now, this is so hard, but I still had to put it in. She's on something green that represents what? Grass. I'll help you a bit. She's laying on some grass. Think of an episode when a companion laid on grass. I was under something metallic, and it's the best I could do in our house, but she's laying there underneath these things. Does anybody have any ideas of where my brain went with our stroke?
Goodness, know where your mind wanders.
Yeah, who knows?
Are you ready?
Creative.
Honestly, this is so good.
Ace.
Oh yeah, you have to tell me. I can't think of this one.
Ready?
Oh. I wouldn't have got that.
Well, I don't think anyone would. I was trying. I remember lights.
That's my favourite companion as well. So
I've got a chandelier.
What's a lot of Morbius
how
there?
did I not get that?
So, I mean, people do seem to like this item because they're going, "What the hell?" Right? Okay. So, right, we're into modern Who now. Believe it or not.
Is there any bit of context that can be given to this?
Well, The background behind her is white, and I tried to make sure it was white. And she's holding on to something, and her legs are flying.
Is
Oh,
is this Rose?
This is
And they're trying to
Rose,
close
yeah.
the portal. The
is it?
the what thing in the finale.
Yeah.
You mean that?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
I've got the rift. Close the rift.
Don't you see how? Look, I mean, Rachel, you'll get this now. Look how close it was.
Oh, very close.
I mean,
No, but as
It's
soon
identical.
as it said Rose, I was like, yeah, okay, I know the bit that you're talking about.
well, we're here tonight. It's Mother and Sunday in Britain, and it was International Women's Day on Friday. So, of course, we thought we should do a Doctor Who discussion and program centered around women and mothers. And so, no, I can't be doing one on mummies. No, that's bad. No. Let's move on. Yes, shall we
Are
do
you
one?
my
Are you my
mummy?
mummy? Yeah. These are good favourites. Anybody have good memories from these two programs?
Yes, I was. I didn't leave my bedroom to go to the toilet for this after seeing The Empty Child.
So you're the empty child. Out of these three, Rachel and Hugh, where would you and timescales? Your favourites? Pyramids, Mummy on Express, or that one?
I mean, I think they're all good. I mean, I think you're really doing good stories there. They're all great. Are You My Mummy is just utterly brilliant as a line.
Are you my mummy?
The suffocation. I mean, when we talk about Joe Grant with the plastic, but the suffocation when the gas mask actually joins the skin is quite brutal.
I'll tell you what, though, it was I think the crushing scene in the Pyramids of Mars when the two mummies kind of gang up on the bloke. I remember watching that for the first time, and I remember that kind of shocking me. Because it's one thing for someone to get shot, and I think we discussed this before. It's one thing for a guy to be shot, or with a laser beam, something that's a bit inconceivable. But for something that's quite prolonged and as graphic as a crush death, I remember that kind of getting to me a little bit. That was one of the few instances of classic Q actually shocking me, because I don't think that would be something that would be shown really in New Who. I don't think not to that in that level.
No, although it was off screen, of course, you saw them going close, and then it went off screen, didn't it? But I know what you mean. I mean, I was thrilled by these stories. But yeah, so you see, this is what happens, Rachel. It's the new way.
It was Robin last week.
Female
Rachel this week.
There you go. So I've tested you out. We've kind of set up the stall. Obviously, we're not talking about that type of mummy. We were talking about this type of mummy. Sarah Jane Smith was a mum in the end to Luke, wasn't she?
Was she? I actually. Oh, yeah, she was actually. Now I know that. I do know that because even though I never watched Sarah Jane Adventures, she did actually appear with Luke in the main series, right? So.
Yeah, so we had that one. Did you watch that, Cinnamon?
Here and there, I did see it. I wasn't a religious fanatic of it. I've even yet to see Torchwood, believe it or not. I was more of the main show, so again, I saw bits of it here and there. I remember the David Tennant, the wedding episode, and the one with Matt Smith as well. So I knew of this character, but I wasn't religiously watching this show.
Timescales in America. Did you get Sarah Jane Adventures?
Yeah, definitely. In fact, my wife and I watched that together and very much enjoyed it. And I really wish that it had continued on for more seasons.
Yeah. And it gave her a different development, didn't it? Because she was an older lady, and now she was a mother. Because you never see our companions as mothers. Yeah, we'll talk about Amy Pond later and all that sort of stuff. But we didn't normally. The younger women in their early 20s are now getting to 19 years old, and they weren't mothers at all. So it was interesting to see that development in her.
And also, I think also interesting is for a woman of her age as well to be the protagonist and the lead of a children's show. As well. That was quite something unique because when you get to that kind of stage in your acting, if you're a woman, you get less of the bigger parts. Let alone a show lead.
It was fantastic to see Liz Sladen at this point in her life in a lead role. And while we're talking about female representation in Doctor Who, this it really pleased me to see this happen, which is why it was so disheartening when what happened to her happened. Hugh, did you actually veer onto any Sarah Jane adventures?
I didn't. I mean, it was children's program. I knew it was children's program. I did watch. I'm sort of like Cinnamon in the sense of I did watch a couple of them whenever the Doctor was appearing. So the Matt Smith appearance, I tuned in for reasons. I think you're absolutely right. To me, it's an extraordinary thing that Liz Sladen is more important, and I know we're about to discuss this and go on to this. Liz Sladen's the second most important female in Doctor Who history for me. We can do the first after whenever we get into it, but I think she does the whole thing. So she is still working whenever she is the companion, and then she comes back and does this, and it's an extraordinary role, and it's not just to do with the writing, it's also to do with her.
Yeah, I mean, we've had lots of mothers in Doctor Who, and of course, I'll shout out a few. We've got one at the moment. I say at the moment because I'm sure we're going to see Donna Noble again. We've got Sylvia Noble in her defensive posture there. I'll talk about maybe some of the defensive tactics we've seen by some mothers in New Who and whether that's appropriate. But we've got Sylvia. The other one I wanted to show you, just as a kind of by the by, who's that?
Is that
Mr. Troughton?
Yeah, that's Patrick Troughton with his mum in Cornwall. I thought that was a nice shot just for today. We all have mums. We all respect them. We all love them. And it's just nice to see even our doctors go through that process of, doing the visits and all the rest.
Can I just say this is the first Mother's Day I've had without my mother?
Is it? And this is what's awful about these.
Yeah.
Well, it's awful.
I don't want to make too much of that, but
it is what's bad about all these days, isn't it? Because there's a moment when we all, as sad to say, I know, we all have to go through the fact that it's a reminder of who we've lost as well. But it's important that it's said, Hugh, because we've all still got mums. They exist forevermore in our minds, if not here. But it's important that she's mentioned on today. So I think that's important, yeah. What about this mother, though? I don't think this mother will warm your cockles. The first ever mother in Doctor Who. She went down well, didn't she?
Well, she was killed in the end, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was killed in the end, and she was protective of her son. She found fire almost something sacred, didn't she? You can't dabble with it. Man shouldn't dabble with it. So she didn't want imposters dealing with it. But so we've got an awful lot of different representation to talk about as we look at these 60 years, which is massive. Now, we will come to the big item that people have seen advertised. I'll just kind of remind people what's coming up. The big debates. It's a magazine show, so we'll do the news in a moment. We'll have a few other items, but we will want to be onto that, the big topic. So make sure you've got your thread open and you're going to share with us your ideas too, because of course it's a binary question and the answer's somewhere in the middle, but it's looking at some of the examples that really livens up the debate. Now, let's kind of get our heads on, because we're not just doing classic Who, we're doing the latest Who, and I want all your opinions on some of the latest news from Doctor Who. So stick with me for a moment, panel. On tonight's dispatches, Was Millie Gibson's demise as the first character of the 15th Doctor inaccurate speculation after all? Russell T Davies teases a return to film more episodes for Ruby Sunday. We tried to make sense of all these contradictory rumours. With discoveries of Disney bots creating false accounts and profiles apparently excited about season 14 and the BBC explaining Doctor Who as an apt franchise to use AI to market it, we discuss, is it reasonable to use any method to market Doctor Who? After positive feedback from those at the BFI premiere of the Celestial Toymaker animation last week, composer Mark Hayes admits that the techniques used were experimental and acknowledges it might divide opinion in fandom. With the cost of each animation DVD, should purchasers expect the technology to be that untried? Join Dispatches. So, I like wrecking that
you're the big
wall.
one now.
I'm dead aggressive. I'm very violent. Okay. Item number one on the news. Are we getting sick of this, or is it just the media stirred up something that they didn't know the answer to? I'll throw it up first, just in case you've missed it. But basically, Russell Davies said in Doctor Who magazine, of the most recent one, he said that they getting the Ruby Sunday set back up and running. And of course, people are saying, right, so in the latest issue, there we go. Russell Davies says the set for Ruby's flat on Minto Road is set to be used again for series 15. Now, again, we haven't seen 14 yet. And while this doesn't necessarily mean the character will be back for more, we've heard rumours that Millie Gibson will indeed return for further shooting, and it explains a few odd things that have happened recently. And we probably know what they are. There were lots of rumours that she just left, and we've now got a new companion, Verada Sethu, and she's been seen filming. And of course, the Mirror and various media organizations were saying, look, she's gone. Millie's been dropped. She was a diva. She didn't like night shoots, and all that stuff was going on. And of course, there was no official statement from the BBC or Russell Davies or anybody. Now, Rachel, you know the industry a bit better than me. So if I asked you, is this normal that if somebody leaves a job that there wouldn't be a statement, or there should be a statement, as in the agent would protect that actress? Or the fact that there was no statement, does this mean that she probably is coming back?
Well, I think it's not normal. If someone is leaving, a statement should actually be made. I'm surprised it happened like so early, if you want me to be honest. But if they didn't make a statement, then that would suggest that she is potentially coming back. However, what I didn't actually like about it was that they let the rumors fly around and they didn't address it. That was poor, and the agent didn't actually protect her for that, and the agent should have protected her on that, and the Actors Union should have done the same.
Yeah.
But they didn't, and that's not normal behavior. That she should have been protected. I mean, I may or may not like her as an actress, and I may not like Ruby Sunday. I may not like Ruby Sunday. That's irrelevant. The treatment of her was really poor. So it could mean that she is coming back, whether it be for a few episodes, and then she goes off, and then they release a statement. Yeah, she is definitely leaving now. Who knows? But we'll see, I guess.
And knowing what you know, and I'll come to the lads in a minute, but knowing kind of what you know from the industry, you're saying this was unusual, and actually, if they're all tied, the BBC, especially Doctor Who contracts, are very, very tight with confidentiality. So of course, if she hasn't left, I suppose the agent can't protect her, or would you expect the agent to still say, hold on a minute, there's more to this, or is that giving too much away if she is coming back?
I would expect the agent to still step in and act as a spokesperson, whoever her agent is. I would actually expect that of an agent, but it didn't happen. So, yeah.
Well, now, just before I come to timescales as an example, people in the thread, do you actually think she's left? Do you think she's coming back? The fact that the set's been rebuilt, does that mean she is coming back, or do you think what is your speculation? Because this media circus hasn't got a conclusion yet. Timescales, what's your guess from across the pond?
Well, I don't know. But I have an idea. You know, Millie Gibson is a professional, and she may have taken another job. There may be something else that she's working on, and she may have selected something else. And I think that it is unfortunate for news to come out of a new companion that we haven't even seen yet, except for in one episode. And as an American, I'm a little bit spoiled with past Doctor Who because we had surprises. You know, we had surprise regenerations where we didn't know that it was going to happen because it hadn't been on the news. And from what I understand, people in the UK did not have those surprise regenerations because of their media. Apparently, everyone already knew, but here we didn't. So I kind of missed the really old days when something was a surprise. And I think it's going to be a little bit to be watching the next season already knowing that this companion has already left the series before we've ever seen it. But I wish her well in her career. I'm looking forward to seeing her on screen more. But if I had to speculate, I think it may be something as simple as a professional career decision on her part.
I mean, there's some interesting things in the thread. Cinnamon, what would you like to say about this? Where do you think your betting is?
Oh God, we've speculated this from high hell to water. We've gone over this. Oh, God knows how many times now. It's the story that never seems to end. It really does it. And I think something Rachel said there that was a good point. You know, about not being protected, because this was the biggest thing that I said about all of this, was that, you know, it's one thing not to say anything, but it's another thing that, you know, it's all the gossip, it's all the speculation. You know, for a young actress and a young woman, you know, as a young person myself, to have, you know, everyone gossiping, you know, saying, oh, did she leave? Because it's not just a character, it's about her as well. The actress gets drawn into the conversation. It's not just a in-universe show discussion. It's a discussion that involves her as a person. And, you know, it puts it, you know, and if you listen to certain press out there, and if certain people are pushing it that, oh, she doesn't want to commit, or she's left, or she's a diva. That was the one that was getting thrown around, getting branded a diva and all that. You know, that doesn't paint her in a good look. And, you know, for any future potential, you know, employers, or want to cast her in any new upcoming project, they might just see it as she doesn't want to commit or something, you know. So it doesn't help her, and that was the whole thing I said about everything. It's not really fair on her, and it's not really fair on the new companion either. It's a bit of a nothing. It doesn't help nobody, and I just felt that sweeping it under the carpet. You know, they think that that's the best way to go about it, and it's not.
Can I also just add to what Cinnamon just said? We also have something in the industry that's called a D&D, which is a do not discuss. So she might actually be bound into that contract as well, which is a potential thing, and that might have actually also affected all of this. So that could add to it.
It's very, as we say, it's either very unfortunate or very clumsy. Which would that surprise you from the BBC to let this clumsily happen so much? Because I'm trying to think if this has ever happened before. I mean, we all knew they told us Chris Eccleston had left literally a day or two after. You know, I mean, he'd only done one episode, but we were told officially he was leaving at the end of the series. So this seems so different and so unusual. So my hunch was always she must be coming back, because nobody wants to actually acknowledge that there is a narrative arc, and we don't want to spoil it.
I have to say, though, there's a huge difference between Eccleston being announced as leaving, because he was a major actor being taken into that role, and this 20-year-old woman who has had a major role in Coronation Street, but doesn't seem to me being protected by the BBC, or Russell, or Bad Wolf, or anyone. So she's being presented as major companion, and then gone. And I think that's really bad. From the whole thing, we had discussion before on one of our many brilliant programs that Brendan produces, and I just don't think that she's been protected properly.
Yeah.
Mm.
Can I just ask, from the American viewpoint, from what you know from American media and from Rachel in particular, this comment we had, I'm just checking out, I think it was Sadako24 was saying this. There we go. I suspect she's left, but I think it was down to Disney meddling for their diversity quota. Is this us just speculating based on we think Disney do that? I mean, is there any truth to Disney have form on this? I'll ask timescales first.
No, I don't believe that there's any truth in that whatsoever, because I don't believe that Disney is active in Doctor Who any more than just streaming it. I believe that they purchased the streaming rights. It is that simple, and I don't believe that they have their thumbs on the show. I don't believe that they're controlling it in any way. I believe that they are just a broadcaster. Now, Rachel just mentioned something that I had not considered at all. She said a DND, a do not discuss.
Yeah.
We have the same thing here, which is called a non-disclosure agreement. And since Rachel has mentioned that, it would make perfect sense that Millie Gibson is probably under a non-disclosure agreement. And the same does apply with authors who have written books or stories or who have acted in audio dramas. They're not allowed to discuss them until they're released. So I think Rachel hit the nail on the head there, and it could very well be something just as simple as a non-disclosure agreement, or the British term do not discuss.
We also call it NDA as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
You don't think, Rachel, then that have you ever heard of this, where basically somebody's got a contract for so long and then another company, a co-producer comes in? This is what Sadako was saying, so I'm just working it through, that somebody else comes in and because of, say, a diversity quota, says, no, this has to change, that actor has to be removed. Have you heard of that?
I've not heard of it per se. I've never witnessed that sort of thing happen. But that's not to say that it doesn't happen with all the things that I've seen in recent years. Whether or not Disney would be doing it to follow their DEI, it's a very tricky thing to say. I mean, I've speculated it, but I think as like they are making RTD did confirm that they are making suggestions, and as whether or not he goes through with those suggestions, then who's to say? I think they made a suggestion to introduce Shooty in the Christmas special earlier. So RTD actually said, that's a good idea. And that's what he did. But whether or not casting, like, I'm going to say this, like firing Millie Gibson to replace her for a DEI casting in Verada Sethu, I'm not sure. I couldn't say. I mean, she is a Disney darling. She does work for Disney.
Yeah.
So who knows? It's difficult to say. Maybe it was their suggestion as a casting choice, but whether or not it's to meet their DEI, I wouldn't like to put money on that.
I think it's pretty safe to say that we wouldn't rule it out as a definite no, because going back on the Disney involvement, I think it's kind of common knowledge now that they were, behind the whole having Shooty appear early in the episode, that was their recommendation. And I find it hard to believe that with them putting all this money into it, that they wouldn't want to have at least some sort of discussion, or perhaps have their opinion at least taken into account, at the very least. If you put some money into something, a lot of people want something back, and and they were quick to tell us that it's no involvement, but then it seems, and that's what a lot of us believe. But it seems recently that a lot of, with a lot of everything that's come to light since, that maybe it's not the case.
It is true I've heard what Garbage is saying. Wasn't it confirmed that Disney do have some control? Rachel, you were mentioning this. There has been discussion. But if Russell Davies is saying he gets a whisper now and again, he gets a suggestion now and again, I think I mentioned ages ago on one of our shows, how long does that take before that goes into his subconscious? And before he even writes a script, he knows what Disney's thinking.
That's
And so
funny.
in other words, Disney have more power than actually they are wielding.
So, like, you're saying, like, even if he might not actually put it in, say, one of the episodes later on, he might think, oh, I can put it sort of like here, maybe. I don't know.
But if you know how your core workers
Yeah.
feel, eventually, surely it subconsciously starts to affect some of your decisions and your writing and how you put things together, just
'cause
subconsciously.
Yeah, because he'll have to sit and he'll have to think, right? And it will start like treading water and being a bit more sort of like careful. Is it Disney going to be okay with that or that? Maybe, you know, treading water, treading on eggshells. I meant, sorry.
Yeah, I
Walking
mean,
on
Brandon,
eggshells.
who I was on with the other day, Culture Pop with B-Hop, please have a look at that stream, please. I enjoyed being on it. We'll love to be on again. Rachel's on it.
Yeah.
I'm sure Disney have the ability to veto anything they don't like.
Yeah.
I do think they have, and there's an item I'm going to show you in a minute. In fact, let's get to it now because that would help. So basically, our second item, just to bring you up to speed. There were two. I've conflated two items here. So the BBC said they were experimenting with AI to promote the next series. Now, may I say that since we've made these slides, the BBC have pulled back on that and said they are using AI to promote what's on iPlayer and all the classic programs, but not the new series.
Yeah.
They really pulled this whole thing back.
Yeah.
So I won't go heavy on that because they do seem to have changed.
I had to pull my video today because they changed it.
Yes. So they have changed it.
Yeah.
But it's interesting when we talk about AI doing things, because sometimes I ask AI to do things for me on here, and it always makes me laugh. That's Cybermen.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, so AI doesn't get it always right. Every time it does a police box for me, it says Polk and it's all weird writing. It never gets it right. And here's another version of AI. Or is this Disney? Cyberman?
Don't give RTD ideas.
Those in America, I don't know if you know our Metal Mickey from ITV. I think that's a Disney version of a Cyberman, surely.
I thought it was R2D2 becoming
Yeah, I thought that too.
humanoid.
Would you like that time scales?
I've seen that, and you know, I'm glad that you mentioned that you could not generate a TARDIS with AI that actually says police box on it.
No.
I wonder why that is.
No.
Any of them that I've generated, the writing on the TARDIS is illegible. Maybe it's in a language I don't know. It looks like it might be in Russian or something like that. But there could actually be a copyright reason why the AI is not generating. TARDIS
it's a good point. I think I've done that as well, and it gets like the first 4 letters right. It usually gets the first 4 letters right, and then it kind of falls apart after that.
And I'll come in. I only have 40 years experience in IT. IT doesn't do the things that you expect it to do. If you want it to do the thing that you want it to do, then it's easy. If you want me to make a TARDIS that looks like a TARDIS, we can do that. If you want someone who's not trying to make a TARDIS look like a TARDIS, then it's impossible. That's the thing. So immediately as you ask someone to say, let's make a TARDIS look like a TARDIS, and you're already restricting it, it won't work. It's not a big problem with AI because AI will solve it, but it's a big problem with what we look on as AI.
Yeah. Did everybody see this? This was Disney bots in action. Did everyone see this? So there's some great research out there on the Twitter, and it's been found out these Disney bots are Disney bots, and they're all anticipating season 14, and they're all anticipating it, and they're excited.
They even sound like bots.
Sorry?
They even sound like bots. Like that. No one talks like that.
Yeah, because a lot of them even start the same. They're not even that clever or awesome. Can't wait to hop on board. Another one says, can't wait to hop on board. Another one says, can't wait to travel through. I've been a fan all my life. I've never that sort of phraseology's never crossed my mind. So
No.
It's all very
fascinating.
fairy tale. It's I can't wait to be taken away and whisked away on my dreams. It's all a bit, come by
I
out.
actually hadn't seen that compilation of Disney bots, so that's interesting. I hadn't seen that post.
Yeah.
No.
And just to finish off on my Disney one, because I want to, move us along. Don't worry.
Seriously, are we all going to be holding hands?
Well, could get to that point. Disney has invested a whole lot of money, says the BBC, into that show, Doctor Who, as has the BBC. So the editorial ambition has gone up a big notch with an amazing cast and writer. It's got new talent and it's got Disney behind it. You can never call it, but it's got everything behind it and it should work. And that's really confident and that's great, but you need Disney bots to market it. That's a bit worrying, isn't it? Because surely word of mouth is the killer. Or am I being cynical? Is anybody in our thread or in our panel thinking, oh,
Right. So I'm not going to call you cynical. I'm going to call you maybe simplistic. If you don't think that everything that is ever going to be done just now is not marketed like that. So therefore, why would they not market it with that?
Yeah, well, it's out there. I mean, you can tell there's not much Doctor Who news. I'm not going to do Doctor Who non-news, but there's a little bit. Last little quickie here. We did Celestial Toymaker last week, but since then, Mark Ayres, one of our composers from good old Classic Who, has acknowledged that the new technique is very experimental and it might divide opinion. And he goes into detail about how the Shapeshifter Studios have kind of broken with the traditional animation style to give it greater fluidity, etc., etc., etc. Now, all well and good, I would say, but the price isn't any different. Now, all I'm asking is it fair and would you expect that the missing episodes, when they do an animation, that they actually bring different directorial styles to it depending on the story, or would you like a house style, or are you not interested in animations at all? Anybody got an interest in this?
Are they releasing this in color?
Yes, and black and white.
And black and
and
white.
black and white.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry. I'm just thinking.
I mean,
So I'm happy with black and white basic if it makes something that I haven't seen visual. Do you think there might be something better? Yeah, but I'll wait for that.
I heard a lot of criticism, which is why I was pleased almost last week when there was a lot of good feedback at the BFI, because I actually thought, look, it was limited in the studio. It was 64, wasn't it? It was very limited, set bound. And actually, I've seen some of the episodes and it's quite clunky and slow. It's a bit like watching Play School. So I like this surreal quality, and it's made it bigger and much more ambitious and looks quite vibrant. I don't know how they're going to mix it with the soundtrack, because the soundtrack's quite plodding. It's a visual story, very visual story. But I think it's worth a try. I'm not one of those who will prejudge. Some people say I've cancelled my order and all the rest of it. It's just that it's not good marketing to say it's experimental, is it? I don't think, really, because it sounds like we're all guinea pigs.
I would agree. It's like, this is the guinea pig episode, I mean, with regards to like it being in color and all this extravagant stuff. I mean, it is the Celestial Toymaker. So I think it is a good way to perhaps test the water, but like saying it's experimental, I wouldn't have done that. I would have just said, yeah, this is the style we're doing it in because it is this character, and we know this character is a bit like wacky, more than just wacky.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, like I quite like the uniform animation, but maybe for the Celestial Toymaker, I don't know. I mean, I'd have to watch it to judge it. I really can't make a decision right now.
Right. Right. One piece of news that might be of interest, because it has been quiet and suspiciously quiet, is that Russell Davies, he was on the wheel last night in Britain. I haven't seen it yet, but he's going to be on the 27th of March. He's going to be on Desert Island Discs live, which give me paused for thought, and I thought, do you know what? I'm going to ask my panel a few questions with their Doctor Who thoughts. And so it's going to be a bit like Desert Island Discs, but it's going to be done with a Brendan twist, okay? So just bear with me. Not that. Don't worry. We always need a bit of trouble first. Yeah, you know me. I'll go there. I know
Are you
my.
sure you've not been taken over by Disney with all these extra
Yeah.
production values?
I don't know. It's been a bad week. I just thought, right, let's liven it because obviously I promise everybody in the thread we're going to the debate soon. So this is just to kind of do our good old Doctor Who bit. So I'll go around the panel and it's quite easy. I'll just set it up for you. We're doing Desert Island Matrix, not discs. And of course, you've got 3 choices, everybody. Please, thread, join in. I want to know if you had to live on a desert island, which Doctor Who book, if you have a range of them, non-fiction, whatever, would you take to the island to keep? Which Doctor Who object? You may have various merchandise, paraphernalia. Is there one thing you'd like to take? And which Doctor Who story? I'll allow you to broadcast forever on that island, one Doctor Who story on a blooming loop. But book, object, story. So yes, I'm throwing you in the deep end as Doctor Who fans. So where would you like to go first? Let's have a look. Cinnamon, go on. You think in the moment.
Oh, well, goodness, that's tricky. Well, I will say this for a book. When my mum went on holiday, there was an old sort of. It wasn't a second-hand shop, but it was sort of an old shop that you'd find all sorts of goodies in, and there was a Doctor Who book, and it was, I think, Doctor Who Legends, and it basically chronicled every single story from Classic Who and explained it in great detail, and it's a very fascinating book and one that I treasure to this day. Doctor Who Object, well, since it's a book for the first one, I remember when I was young, and the 11 Doctors figure set by character options.
Yeah.
I remember being fascinated by that, to have all of them in action figure form, and I got that for my birthday. I think from Hooray in Stockton. I think Brendan won though, but
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I think it was the last one there. So I got that. And Doctor Who's story, goodness me. See, it's easy to pick your favorite story, but then if you watch it over and over, would it lose its impact?
Because I've thrown everybody in the deep end, I was thinking, do you know what? If you could find the episodes, I'd go for the longest one, 12 episodes just on the loop, because at least there's more to play with. I wouldn't go for a 2-parter, definitely.
Oh, good, yeah. That's a very difficult one. Do you know what?
Does anyone? You don't have to. We're not going to go through everybody to death. Don't worry. So, does anyone want to throw in any items they definitely would want to choose?
I have one. One does come to mind, but I guess technically it would be a hybrid of a Doctor Who book and a Doctor Who object, because I would bring the box set of audio dramas, which is titled The Nest Cottage Chronicles, written by Paul Mars, starring none other than Tom Baker. That's a absolutely wonderful box set, and depending on how long I was going to be on the island, that's something to consider there. But yeah, that's what I would bring. Those are my all-time favorite Doctor Who audio dramas to date.
Okay, I'm keeping an eye on the thread. Anybody else got any thoughts to do with any of those?
So, sorry, my apologies.
Oh,
On
thank
you
you.
go.
I think, my Doctor Who book would be the Stone Rose, because that's the only one I have. But for the object, it's not an actual Doctor Who object, but it's actually my signed photograph from Colin Baker. So I take that one, and then for the Doctor Who story, I would be torn between taking the Stockbridge trilogy from the audio dramas, because I love that trilogy, or the Two Doctors. It's my favourite multi-doctor story, but I wouldn't know which one.
Okay, Hugh.
So it's a different one. If I was to choose one thing, one object, obviously it's some form of TARDIS. It's maybe the TARDIS you have in your house. It's maybe the TARDIS I have in my house. I don't know, but it's a TARDIS. A TARDIS is the Doctor Who thing that I think is the most important thing. If it's a story, leaving aside my love for the Robots of Death, if I was to go for anything else, it would be The Evil of the Daleks, which I think is the greatest story ever written. But there we are.
Okay, cool. Anyone got any additions before we move on to the big
Well,
debate?
could I choose the real TARDIS and get me off this island?
There you go.
Well, yeah. I was just going to say this Desert Island Matrix issue, as Timescales was saying, he doesn't know how long he's going to be on the island. I tell you what, with global warming, of course, the issue would be that island will not be there one day, so you might have to get off it fast. So, yes. I mean, I've thought about this, and I thought I've got loads and loads of books. It'd have to be a thick book. I've got those ones, the classic Who books for the 80s and the 70s, and it goes through the whole thing. And to be honest, because I'm a 70s kid, it was when it happened. Classic 70s. So I've got all the details about all the 70s Doctor Who stories. Picking a story I know is tricky, but it would be between, I think, something like Talons or Genesis of the Daleks, something like that really pleases. Or Planet of the Daleks, because I really do like Planet of the Daleks. It just makes me feel good inside, I have to say, that one. Take me right. But
I love the fact that something about the Daleks makes people feel good inside, but it does. It
You
does.
remember where you were because you were scared stiff. You knew where you were in the house, and you were, where's all the exits, all that stuff. You were aware.
Well, yeah, if you were you, and you had a whole battle plan, of exits and strategies of how to escape.
I knew what I was doing when the Daleks came on. I would have a basket over my head with my mum's, she had this washing thing that was part of our washing machine, going, I am a Dalek, I am a Dalek.
Well, we do what we can.
Yeah.
Or me, or you talk to a fan and have it imitate that funny thing to your voice.
I know. It's a good job there's no psychologist listening. So here we go then. Here we go. Main event. This is now. I would only pick certain topics with my panel because I trust where we're going with things. It's a very binary question, everybody. The role of powerful women in Doctor Who, which I have to say, if you go from the 60s throughout, it was a fairly male-dominated show. If you looked at the early 60s, it was. Ian Chesterton was the male lead. William Hartnell was kind of the interesting character, but obviously the heroic bits were done by Ian Chesterton. And of course, Caroline Ford left because she wasn't given really lots of meat. So it was set up in the first place. And since then, things have changed, granted. But what I want to say is we can mention any examples from any era of Doctor Who regarding women who were powerful, good representations of women, bad representations, stereotypes. Has it freed up our franchise, this sci-fi franchise? Has it made it more interesting? Has it made it more engaging? Has it made it more authentic? Or has it actually, I don't know, changed it? Emasculating is a bit strong, but has it changed it? So that's where we're going. And so Thread, liven up, start to tell us what you think. It's not a topic you can sit on the fence. So under started orders, timescales, where would you like to start regarding this whole topic?
Okay, thank you, Brendan. I actually have two to mention. The very first that comes to mind would be Ace, as performed by Sophie Aldred. And the reason being is that when I started watching Doctor Who in the early 80s, it was with my grandmother. And she lived in San Jose which was right near the television broadcast tower. So she got an extremely clear signal on her television. And that was important back then, especially if you were going to be taping the shows on VHS like I was doing. It was important to have a good television signal. So I started going to my grandmother's house every weekend, watching Doctor Who on PBS, and she fell in love with it as well. So Ace, as performed by Sophie Aldred, was my grandmother's favorite companion. You know, she said, wow, this one here's got some spunk to her. And she would sit there laughing and giggling, watching the performance of Ace. Ace was her favorite companion. So that would be the first that comes to mind. And then the second, obviously for me, would be Jodie Whittaker's Doctor. I think it is absolutely wonderful that there finally has been a woman in the role of the Doctor. I do know that there are a lot of opinions out there about whether or not the Doctor should have been a woman. You know, I have seen comments as drastic as the Doctor should have never been a woman. And I can't really agree with that, because for someone to say that, it seems to be coming from a little bit of a selfish standpoint, where for someone to say that, they would have preferred that the Doctor was not a woman. However, what about all of the female fans and young ladies out there that love Doctor Who, that might not have felt included in the show, as if they could never be involved in it, and might have felt excluded because of the fact that the Doctor had always been a white man? I was talking to a Doctor Who buddy of mine, Galen Lee, about disability in Doctor Who, and she raised my awareness to the fact that it is important for Doctor Who to include everyone and portray all different types of people with disabilities, for example. But during that conversation I had with Galen, she said that she had seen a comment online from a little girl that absolutely loved the Jodie Whittaker Doctor. And she said, this finally means that I can be the Doctor too. So that right there made me realize, it got me off of the fence, and it made me realize that I am for Doctor Who being inclusive. And I am just so happy that Jodie Whittaker was cast in the role. It was a wonderful thing. And in America, we actually elected a female president at the same time that she was cast. Hillary Clinton actually won the election, but then there's something called the Electoral College, which we won't go into. But I was absolutely thrilled to see Jodie Whittaker cast in the role, and very much enjoyed every single one of her episodes. Well, almost all of them.
So wait, right, okay, then timescales, and I'll bring somebody else in as well. Right. So Ace, brilliant choice, great role model, especially for younger women, right? Ace. Mm-hmm. Then you say the Jodie Whittaker female version of a Doctor. In a way, isn't it? We're having you can have your cake and eat it, so to speak, here, because some would argue it was a male lead, but if you have a very good female companion like Ace, then as you were saying, people can find representation that they're like. As you were saying, people need to see themselves. And so if you had a good, decent male lead, since at that point it had always been a male lead, and then you have a decent Ace-style female representation, so everybody gets something. Because as Peter Davison said before, suddenly he had to retract it. He was worried that lads weren't getting any role model from the Doctor, because he knew sci-fi fans and boys and all the rest of it. Where does anybody want to go with this? I think on the Ace and the Jodie Whittaker point, it's interesting because in some ways, the way Jodie Whittaker dresses as the Doctor, it's not very feminine. It's an interesting kind of androgyny, I find, in between the two. I find. Ace equally was more tomboyish, I think, is the old-fashioned way would have said it. It's
tomboy.
Yeah, it's interesting when we talk about role models and that, but you know, you had Sylvester McCoy. I mean, as a lad, I wasn't going, oh, I need to be like Sylvester McCoy. He was just a male lead, I suppose. But Ace might have pleased an awful lot of people if they saw themselves in that character. But I never looked out for thinking, because the Doctor was always in his 50s. He got a bit younger when I was older. But basically, I never thought I want to be him because he was like a granddad to then a 40-odd-year-old person. I find representation a really interesting one. But on Ace and Jodie Whittaker, where does somebody want to come in here?
Well,
Rachel?
I guess. Yeah, Rachel can go ahead if you want.
Sorry. Rachel?
Yeah. I don't know. I'm just like processing everything that's been said. It's all right to come back to me.
Of course.
Well, I can go off. I guess this is maybe where I respectfully disagree with the timescales. I think the issue, it's we didn't need to see a female Doctor. It's not that we. And the way I say that is that, people will say, oh, we absolutely needed to, or, I'm so glad it happened. It's like, well, the way I see it, it was it was a part that was played by a white male for 54 years, I think at that point, however many, 55. The Doctor was always a man, but that was how we always seen it. And it wasn't up until, that was Hellbent, when we first saw the first instance of a cross regeneration of a I think it was a male, wasn't it, who generated into a black woman.
Yeah.
And that was when we found out, they could change genders, because when my understanding of it was there were male, female, there were male Time Lords and there were female Time Lords or Time Ladies. However, the issue with Jodie, it happened. And I think this whole thing about being able to see yourself is it's a trend of modern day viewing. As someone who's autistic and suffers with social anxiety, I don't need to see the Doctor become a blubbering mess at the first instance of adversity. And I don't want to speak on behalf of Brendan. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I'll let him speak for himself. But I'm sure, that I've spoken to many gay friends. They don't need to see themselves, in the Doctor. Or if you listen to Rabbi, he said routinely, and he jokes as he says it, but he means it. He doesn't need the Doctor to be a fat Jew just so he can relate to him. It's this incessant sort of need to see oneself in a character. I've never once, when I was growing up, I never once thought twice about Rose or Mickey's relationship and the fact that he was black and she was white. It was just something that was accepted because you saw it was treated normally, and you moved on. And it's the whole point is to relate to the character. We watch these characters because we want to be entertained. We want to be the Doctor. We want to inspire ourselves to be the Doctor. We don't want the Doctor to be me, because then that would be boring. At least to me. And it depends on who you talk to, because everyone's got their own agendas and everyone's got their own opinions. So of course, someone who's perhaps a disability activist, would obviously actively campaign for this kind of thing. But as a disabled person myself, and speaking to other disabled fans, again, Scottish Davros, I won't speak for him, but he has also, spoken in his own words about how, the character of Davros, RTD ruined that character, because Davros, if you really want to go there, was a great example of representation, because this was a guy, an evil genius, who's not able-bodied. He has to have a travel machine, but that never stopped him, though, did it? He was still able to create, the most evil race in the universe with the Daleks, and the damage they would eventually cause. That never hindered him in any way. you know, and Davros is, I see people on radio shows even reference him. He's an iconic villain, not quite to Darth Vader levels, but a lot of people vaguely interested in sci-fi have probably heard of that name. So, but that's just a little my 2 cents on when it comes to representation. But in terms of Doctor Who and representation of women, I think you could say that maybe sometimes, or in certain instances, women have been underused. I wouldn't say that I wouldn't say that there's been anything downright offensive about how women have been portrayed. I mean, again, certain characters have been a bit weak or a bit, lacked of development. But you've got a photo of Leela. When I first watched The Robots of Death, which is a fantastic episode. I think Hugh likes that one a lot. I remember being quite fascinated of Leela and the fact that, she was quite powerful and quite aggressive and, warrior. And you got to think this was 1977, and okay, yeah, the outfit was a bit for the dads. You could argue that possibly, but it's she's from another planet. She's a tribal woman. It's her culture. That's you could assume that's how they dress. And to see her, to see the Doctor, and he doesn't, some people would say, oh, the Doctor's mansplaining to her. No, he's just trying to teach her of how to behave in a civilized society because she comes from a very tribal background. I think you put up a picture there of is it the Mavellans or is it Galaxy 4 of the race of women? There's a planet full of women.
The Dravins.
Yeah, no. Yeah. When you watch that story, they're quite fairly aggressive. They're very, very commanding. There is a woman. I think they say they killed the men. Now, they do have men there, but they kill them after sort of breeding with them or something like that.
I think in the Way Cinnamon, there was an argument as we went through the whole of the Doctor Who era that women in the 60s ended up being screaming companions. They were definitely an add-on and maybe definitely there as something for the dads, as you said. And when you mentioned the Dravins, they broke that stereotype. But then suddenly what they do with female representation is the women suddenly are very autocratic, very dictatorial and very overstrong and very masculine. And so basically you weren't getting good female representation. You were just getting an iteration of masculinity. And so in a way, I think sometimes the argument is that women were underserved in the 60s. Of course, when we come to the 70s, it opened up a bit with Sarah Jane. She mentioned Women's Lib. She mentioned a bit of that. She was an independent journalist. Blah, blah, blah. And it went on from there. And in a way, right up to Ace, we were reflecting how society was changing. I don't know who wants to come in on this argument about have women been well served by, we've now had a female doctor. You see, we could go anywhere on this female doctor, and yet she showed no compassion for Graham, who had cancer. And that kind of goes against not just a maternal or feminine stereotype. I mean, normally you'd expect women to be much more compassionate and caring and warm and empathetic. And the Jodie character didn't do that, which was strange.
It was strange because it was, and I think that's all down to the writing. They didn't really change how the Doctor spoke. It was still very masculine. So they didn't adapt it. And Jodie has this aura around her where she can actually deliver this amazing, empathetic, gorgeous speeches that we've seen her do. And then to sort of which was Broadchurch, wasn't it? It was Broadchurch. And then she comes into this and she's like, oh, and it's so masculine, so disconnected to what a woman actually can actually be. This is also why I had a bit of a misgiving about a woman playing the Doctor. I remember when it was announced that Jodie Whittaker was going to be taking on the Doctor, I was like, oh, there are plenty of other Time Ladies that she could possibly do that we know of, like bring back Romana, bring back the Rani. We could actually go down that route and bring those two characters back or create a new character. But to have a woman, I mean, I didn't feel represented. Let's just say it like that. I didn't feel represented. I always feel more represented through the companions than I do the actual Doctor being a woman.
Well, as you say, the female Doctor, I mean, and if everybody is watching this, be careful with what you're hearing me say. I'm not taking the woman down here, Jodie Whittaker. I'm talking about the character and how it was written. And I think it's fair to say that Jodie Whittaker was not given the bullets to fire as an actress. I think that's fair to say.
True.
And within that, though, there were some interesting choices that you're saying she made as an actress on how to perform as the Doctor, which some have said, is it unfair to say she was David Tennant light? She did a lot of his mannerisms and wackiness. And yet,
Actually, sorry, I never made the connection to David Tennant at all. Actually, that's I didn't
agree.
make that connection.
A lot of people said that, didn't they? That she was a sort of a poor imitation, but I never got that. I
never got that.
I just think she wasn't prepared very well. I'm pretty sure Chibnall made it clear for her to not watch anything, and I find that, and I can see why some people might say that, but I just feel, if you're stepping into a role and an iconic role as big as this, because I know for Marvel over there in the States, it's a big franchise. If you're going to play the character of Spider-Man or of a legendary iconic character, you want to nail it down. I mean, look at what Cillian Murphy did with Oppenheimer. He really made an effort to really research a lot of that character. I'm not saying it's not a biopic film pick. It's not a level of Oppenheimer, but this is a Doctor Who. You want to have a familiar, grasp on it. I'm pretty sure she said she never watched it growing up. I imagine when she was younger, during the Wilderness years, it wasn't even on. I just think if you're going to step into a role like this, because she already had a bit of an uphill task, because understandably, if you are going to be the first female Doctor, is almost added pressure, because there will be those people who are expecting you to fail. So, and every doctor has to have the chance to win people over. That every Doctor goes through that. But I feel like it was almost double for her. So, I think, it's a bit of both. I don't think everyone is perfect for the role. I think possibly she was miscast, but then I think a lot of people, Colin Baker might have been miscast as well.
It's just that when you look at I can look at Blake Seven and Servalan. Although was she also equally? She used female wiles to get her way, and is that falling into another vamp type territory, which is another trope? You see, when we want decent female representation, what is that in this generation? Because I think it's fair to say that the 13th Doctor fell into a kind of slightly more childish kind of.
Yeah. They made such a big play and big deal, on virtue signaling about, it smashed that glass ceiling. There's not. Oh, you've made the Doctor a woman. Okay, fine. And I remember when I first saw that I think it was Wimbledon, wasn't it?
Yes.
They announced it during the halftime or something of walking through the woods. And when I saw and I saw there was a close-up shot of her eyes. And when I saw those eyelashes, I thought, yeah, that's a woman. And then when she took the hood off, I thought, wow, my jaw was on the floor briefly for a moment, and I thought, wow, they've actually done it, because there was always talk for years. It was always thrown around as an idea. Whenever, I remember when Peter Davison left. I say I remember when, like, I was there watching it, but I've seen an interview of him when he left, and the interviewer, I don't know who her name was, but she asked J&T, do we ever have a lady Doctor Who? And J&T briefly said, well, it's not something that we're looking into right now, but never say never. Again, it was that idea, and I think Sidney Newman wrote a letter, maybe suggesting it at one point or another. It was always an idea that was briefly thrown around, but when they did that Wimbledon and they announced Jodie Whittaker as a Doctor, I thought, wow, they've actually finally done it, and I was kind of looking forward to it. I was actually quite excited, because it was a change, it was something new, and I thought I'd give it a go. There was two camps that were kind of there at the time. There was people who were against it, and there were people who were very for it, and then there was people in the middle who were, okay, I'll give it a go. And I remember quite looking forward to it, and I remember being frustrated that I had to wait until October, which then felt like a long time, but we've had to wait longer than that now. Between Jodie's final episode and the 60th anniversary, I think that was a longer wait. So and I watched it with vague interest. I was open-minded. I was going into it. It didn't didn't live up to how I thought it was going to be. I didn't enjoy it, but that's a separate matter. But I think
Have we
should
made
give it.
right? This is a one for the whole panel. And the thread, please, the thread. Some people are giving me judgments and everything. Please explain them, and I'll bring them in and we'll discuss them. Have we made progress between the 13th Doctor's time and now? Because we're in a situation now where we've had a bi-generation, and we had a moment in the giggle when the meta-crisis Dr. Donna and her daughter Rose said they were better than a male doctor. So in 2023 writing, have we moved on, or have we got ourselves going down a blind avenue, or am I missing the point? Looks like Rachel's going to come flying in.
Come flying in. Yeah, I mean, I hated that line from them. I really did. It was terrible writing. It was like, what's the opposite of misogyny? What's the word for it?
Misandry is the opposite of
female misogyny. I don't know what it's called. I can never remember what it
So
was.
if you hate men, then it's misandry. It depends what you want to do. I'll do all of the definitions. I'm very good at these.
But it just felt like saying like women don't need no man no more. Yeah, you're redundant, and that's not true. We still need men. Men are our protectors, so
But
let us
what
do that.
to me it said.
So degree.
So no, I apologise if I go over this. What's it said that it's okay that you've been a woman, but actually I'm a man who's a woman. So we really want to go down there. We will be that. It's up to how much you want to do on this. Then Sarah will get really annoyed.
Yeah, I think, and it's just my question is, when you want to see progress, and I think the BBC and the Disney, was it DEI or DIE, they want to actually prove there's some sort of progressive movement going on. And my genuine question is, between a 13th Doctor and obviously, though that's bit of dialogue with this amazing writer that you saw the BBC going on about, have we actually made any progress? Because it seems to me that while you're trying to big up women, and there's nothing wrong with that, can you big up women without knocking the male characters down? This is the problem. Equally, in the 60s and 70s, you had, I dare say, a lot of patrician male characters who looked more powerful because they would shout or bite at women characters, and that wasn't a good look either. And I just think in this present day and age, if you're going to write cleverly and apparently progressively, you don't destroy one gender to make another one look powerful. It has to be cleverer than that.
It does.
It's just I don't see it.
So can I go off on one of my general rants here? The great thing that Doctor Who had, whenever it was first formed, was Verity Lambert.
Yeah.
Because she knew that someone, as a female, had to be important. And they had Barbara. And Catherine Hill is astounding in that role. Because what happens is not a thing of just representation.
Yeah.
They have someone who is entirely reasonable, and sort of like if you want to look at this and you want to take this back, you want to look at someone who is a female representation in 1962, 63. She's extraordinary, and it's brilliant, and it's because of Verity. So therefore, after that, unfortunately, goes a bit something for the dad. But that's the greatest thing that Doctor Who did. So there we are.
And I agree, because that's a good point, because I was going to mention this earlier, but I forgot it, but thanks for reminding me, because the thing is with Susan, with Barbara, is that she is a teacher. She's in a position of authority, isn't she? Of
Yeah.
of children. And she's not just she's not just Ian's wife. That he goes home and then
No.
she kind of collects. And then
That's the big thing. She's not just Ian's wife, and her and Ian are exactly the same.
Exactly, and they're treated as equals. It's they're
Yeah.
not, so, I mean, he's the action man. Whenever there's a fight scene or anything, Ian will be the man to do it. But I don't get the impression.
Sort of okay,
watching that,
I think that's entirely reasonable physically, but it's not. She's not treated differently.
She's
That's a great
also
thing.
very motherly.
Yeah.
She's also
Yeah.
very motherly, I think.
I think she's alternatively whatever. Yes, I agree, but I don't know what that is because she's just going. There are things you could be considering, which are not the things you're normally considering, which may be motherly.
Well, and here's the point from Crimpline. There are a few characters in Doctor Who scarier than Barbara telling off the Doctor in The Edge of Destruction.
because she's level-headed. I think you get the sort of quick temperedness of the Doctor. You get this sort of the young and the immaturity of Susan. Maybe maybe the brash, maybe the young ego of maybe Ian. If not that he was that particularly egotistical, but you get the Doctor and Ian. They would bicker occasionally on differences of how to handle things. But I always thought Barbara was very level-headed. Or the core of the
Voice
group.
of reason.
I always thought she did very well to keep things together. Yeah, exactly. The voice of reason. I thought, like I said a moment ago, I never got the impression watching 60s Who that Ian was above her or anything like that. They seem like equals. Even in the first scene, they're just sat there talking to each other as colleagues, as friends.
Yeah, I have to say, I was reading something today for preparation for this, and they were making a big deal that the Jodie Whittaker Doctor and her crew, and it was deliberate that she would say fam, and that because it meant that it was a tighter unit, much tighter. And a lot of you have started to revert back to 63, the original TARDIS crew, saying they were warm, they were tight, they were close knit, they were quite level, and the dynamics were quite reasonable with each other after those first early stories. And I yeah, they didn't need to say fam. They looked out for each other. They had a lot of empathy for each other. I thought Barbara and Ian worked as a fantastic duo, and that, to me, there was an awful lot of respect there as colleagues. And actually, they sometimes felt very warm towards the Doctor and careful with him, and other times they had to pull him back. And it just had an amazing balance. And yet, I was reading today when they said FAM was meant to say that this modern TARDIS crew was all egalitarian, that they were all very equal. And that was the point they were trying to make. And yet, I think in many ways, that first crew did a good job of that.
Especially because TV was also still very new and BBC was still very new, and they didn't have much time to actually film. It was like literally 1-2 takes. If it's wrong, it's wrong. That's why William Hartnell flubbed a lot of his lines because of that. But it just shows that they work well together as well, and they bond well. And even when you hear them speak much later on in life, you can tell that they had a tight-knit relationship, and it played through onto the screen.
Yeah, now
the way I see it is that with this TARDIS team, they were a tight family unit, but you could tell that just by watching and listening to them. Whereas with the Jodie era, they made constant, non-stop effort to remind you that they were a tight family unit. Whereas you could got that effortlessly. These guys.
I think this is part of our society now. You have to say the obvious.
It's supposed to be show, don't tell.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly. That's all I seem to say in teaching.
And let's be very careful about this. I don't think if you went back and watched most programs from the 1960 to 1963, you get this amount of crossover. It's just they are that good. Jacqueline Hill is that good.
Yeah.
It's just they are very lucky to have actors and actresses who are that good.
They put a lot into it. There was a warmth there that clearly wasn't even in the dialogue. It was there. Can I just mention, to bring in timescales here? Timescales. We had in the thread, I always call it the margin. I'm going to have to give a nickname to our thread because I never have the right appropriate language.
The chat. I'd say
Yeah,
chat.
I know, but I think I'm going to have to make it weird, because I can't name the right things, you see. Right, timescales. It was said in, I call it the margin. It was said that Liz John was ahead of her time. Carolyn John, Liz Shaw.
Right.
Yes.
And was that because of the gender politics of the time? Do you reckon that John Pertwee's doctor, male lead, he wanted a female companion who would be more kind of yes sir, no sir, what's happening, doctor? And unfortunately that character was too progressive for its time. And we'll big up Ace, we'll big up Rose, we'll big up Donna, but actually Liz Shaw was ahead of Romana, was ahead of loads of them, and was maybe almost back to Barbara in a different way, because Barbara was self-confident, and so was Liz Shaw.
Well, Zoe was as well, wasn't she? Zoe was, she was wasn't she a human?
Yeah, she was like
ahead of her, from the future,
yeah,
and she was,
timescales
of intelligence, and she could.
I don't really know. I don't know what the state of British TV was back then, because
slow. That was
so
very slow.
Did I just get myself out of this?
I'm probably the old. I think I'm the oldest person here. It was jaw-droppingly slow.
Well, what this is making me realize is that women have been well represented in Doctor Who since the very beginning.
With missteps, as you would expect. But there was a mistake. I think they set it up so well. I think one of the shames, the sliding doors moments, is it's a shame Verity Lambert left so soon, because she had such a strong hold of that program and an understanding of it. And she'd cast the people and she knew what it was all about. And I think they could have maybe done more, therefore, with Barbara and maybe Vicky and others afterwards, and not started to fall into the damsel in distress companion that ended up getting Victoria screaming and all the rest of it. So I think there's an element where the misstep happened after Verity Lambert left. Because I can't see Verity Lambert, I'm reading her book now, I can't see Verity Lambert wanting to represent women like that. She's not got a history of it.
Yeah. Can I just say,
I think she's the mother.
So I want to really interrupt here. Can I just say, it's really hard for people to understand how important Verity Lambert is to Doctor Who, in terms of, if she wasn't there, Barbara wouldn't have looked anything like that. If Verity Lambert wasn't there, it would not have been the program that it was, and people do not understand that. And I'm sort of like, I'm happy to say there are other things that she wasn't there for, but she is central to why Doctor Who is the program that it is.
Right, let's go around the panel very quick. A quick item here on female representation. Who's your go-to best character that you can think of at the moment on the hoof? A female character, villainess for being powerful, maybe, and self-confident, or companion, or another character. Somebody in the margin again, said Lady Adrasta earlier. And Lady Adrasta in Creature from the Pit stood out to me for quite a while, I have to say. But in the end, she kind of lost it. But is there a character where you think, Doctor Who, do more of that? That was on the money. That was authentic woman. Does anybody want to start off on that one?
Well, I think when Doctor Who returned to television, the very first episode that aired was named after a woman, Rose. And I was in awe that Doctor Who had actually returned. And after a few episodes, it was obvious that this really is Doctor Who again, and it finally is back. But I think because of the fact that when Doctor Who returned, the very first episode was named after the companion, a woman, Rose. that left a strong impression on me, and I would like to see more of that kind of energy right there.
And before I move on to the next person on their thoughts, and I did say a quick round, so I'm going to have to make sure I don't break my own rules. But after Rose, it was strange, wasn't it, that we went down the Martha Jones element where we had this unrequited love and she was almost fawning over the doctor. It was such a shame. And it was a shame to do it to Freema. Freema's mentioned this, that she didn't quite know why they wanted to do that. And Russell Davies said, there's more people who will relate to you with unrequited love than will understand getting the person you love. He thought actually she represented more people. But anyway, that's just an aside issue on female representation. Who wants to go next on a really authentic, decent female character in Who?
I would say it's probably a bit predictable, but Donna, because we had the stereotypical tropes with Rose falling in love with the doctor and then the unrequited love, and Donna coming into it. Yes, okay, they had to pull the character back because she was way too feisty in The Runaway Bride. I'm not gonna lie, but they just showed that a man and a woman can work together as a team and be friends.
Yeah,
and I like that.
I like the fun brother-sister type relationship, very platonic. And she called him out when she needed to. I agree with you. And like I said, and I'll keep saying it, I share the surname, so I will defend her to the hilt. Who's next? Hugh?
So
you can. All right, you're allowed to keep Barbara, but you can have another one as well.
Right. So I'll go for Sarah Jane, because she became something more important, I think, than she was ever written. And she was really, really good at holding back the doctor doing things that were very, very stupid, which I think is part of the companion, which I think is the central part of a companion of going, this is the wrong thing. And Liz Sladen is just the greatest.
Yeah. And it was one of those classics. She started to really understand the character more than any of the writers, and it's an interesting moment when that happens. I'm sure for any actor.
Not quite sure how it worked, because I don't think you could write. I don't think if you look back at it, you can work out when it happens. But she does get it, and there's a bit where I think Tom Baker gets it better than the writers.
Yeah. Where would you like to go, Cinnamon?
Well, I think Rachel's pretty spot on. I think, Donna. I think she's your everyday woman. She was a bit much, and I think she did put a few people off when she first came in. But I think they did well to sort of tone her down a bit. To give her more of a humane side, and give her more empathy. I think that's why. Although Planet of the Ood might not be a strong episode, that scene where she's visibly getting upset, that scene that all the Ood enslaved, and you see more of a personality, and it's not even just a personality; it's just the way she acts. Like even in the unimportant scenes where she'd be thrown in Neris and banging on about not letting her get a word in edgeways about some person she's annoyed about at work. Just little things like that make her relatable. She's very relatable, I think. I would say Donna's more relatable than Rose. Rose is the sort of the lovesick teenager, and a little bit with Martha as well. The puppy dog eyes. But again, with Donna, it was a more mature, older woman who was very feisty, very. She was more than ready to give her opinion, and she wasn't. She wouldn't let anyone walk all over.
Because that's something.
And, I think that was.
I mean, that's something.
But Hugh's right as well. Hugh's absolutely right. Sarah, as well. She was feisty at times as well. She could,
But it is something I would criticize Doctor Who for, that they wrote younger girls throughout the history of the program mostly, and they never really got brave and actually showed you strong women. Now you've got the Rani. Barbara is middle-aged, so they started well. Donna is middle-aged.
Well, this is why I like Nyssa, actually. This is why I like Nyssa, because she was young, and she was she could equal, maybe not equal the Doctor, but she could get on his level, in a sense. And the same thing I mentioned earlier with Zoe as well. She was from, I think, from the future as well.
Yeah.
She could
So
talk mathematical equations.
the big problem with this is that if you have a character, it doesn't matter if they're male or female, if you're challenging the Doctor in some way, who are going to be intelligent, then that becomes a huge problem. It's just so that's there was an issue whenever they were writing Liz Grant with the Doctor, because what happened was they were trying to write someone who's really, really clever. And it's okay. You can write a really, really clever character. But what you can't do is just write a character who's just really, really clever to start with. Same problem with Zoe. It doesn't work from a woman's point of view. What you have to do is say, you are going to be this clever and you are going to be... That's why doing something like Liz Sladen really works. That's why, amazingly, and I look back at it, I remember sort of like looking sort of like with just doing Doctor and really stupid woman doesn't work. Does if the woman becomes clever because the woman is clever. So whenever you have Leela, she becomes clever, but she actually is clever to start with.
It's how you judge. It's how you judge cleverness.
If you ignore the fact that Leela is the cleverest person on that planet, and she is the cleverest person on the planet in Face of Evil, then you ignore it. But she is the cleverest person on that planet.
She's a clever actress.
Yeah, I guess it depends on how you measure intelligence. Are we talking? I know lots of sciencey things, or I'm a bit street smart. I've got a bit of common sense. I've got a bit of initiative.
Exactly.
I know how to handle certain situations.
This was always the point. I think when Doctor Who kind of always did missteps, that when they wanted to show a strong female character, they thought, we'll give her an IQ of 5,000 and that'll do it. No, it won't.
The Zoe thing. The Zoe thing is dreadful for that. Yeah.
Yeah, you need to make a three-dimensional character. And of course, it was a lot of male writers then who didn't understand how to actually depict women. There was an element of that. Of course there was. I was going to go in a few directions then, but timescales, you're ruminating there, I can see. You're having a little think.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying the comments over here in the chat.
Oh, yes.
And one of them... which I wanted to mention. It looks like it scrolled off. Oh, Culture Pop. Culture Pop said, I'm definitely going to go watch Doctor Who after this stream. Absolutely. Me too.
Which era? Which story? I mean, you could go, when you listen to Who, you think, I don't know. Not that you can watch Unearthly Child unless you've already owned it. But, you go back to one of the early ones and watch Barbara. Or you're going to go back and watch Ace, as has been mentioned.
Sorry. Thank you for even mentioning Ace. Brent, I just want to jump in there. As soon as you mention Ace, isn't she's one of the greatest characters I've ever seen for doing that, for going, let's do this whole problem. That's whenever they were addressing the problem that it was going to be an issue, and she is extraordinary. She takes on the whole male role of smashing up things like Daleks with a baseball bat. It's great. 1988 is extraordinary.
Yeah, because she does stuff that Stephen or Ian would never do, really. I couldn't imagine Ian or Stephen smashing up or throwing bombs at Dalek,
and
in the way that she does.
Yeah, and the flight response had always been shown more with the women than the fight response, so it was good actually to see something like that coming in with Ace.
And that's fair. So to introduce three more characters in case we've missed any out, because it might prompt a bit more debate. I'm sneaking in my little naughty item, which Rachel is Snog, Marry, Avoid. But I call it Rose Romana, Rose River Romana. So let me just play the little jingle first. There you go. Cheap and nasty. You've got my level now, haven't you? So if you just see the first item here. So we've got Snog, Marry, Avoid. It's an all-female panel tonight for obvious reasons. I am not going to do any kind of quotas of men. They've had their day. So basically, you've got Margaret Blaine, good old Slovene. I loved her in Boomtown. Lady Adrasta, she was mentioned in the thread. And Madame Kavarian, who was in the Matt Smith era. Who wants to go first regarding, I mean, you can be cheeky about this, of course you can. You play the character, and it might prompt you to mention something about female representation with villainesses. Rachel, what do you reckon?
Right, sorry, I have no idea what's going on.
That's good. That's good. So basically,
that means you've got your head on.
That's it. Rachel, we're forcing you to make terrible decisions like Snog, Marry, Avoid.
Right.
Playing the character. But obviously, I'm trying to get a few more characters into the discussion. So you can be as cheeky or flippant as you want, but if you want to have a go.
I have no idea what's going on. So, wait, which one would I Snog, Marry, or Avoid? What?
Yeah, that's how we're doing. So, for
much.
Example, I'm not going to Snog Margaret Blaine because she's got somebody else's skin on, and that doesn't seem right to me.
Okay, got you.
Adrasta might shout in my ear. I'll get blooming tinnitus with her. She tends to be very triggered. Madame Kavarian, though, is dangerous. So this is problematic. But these are three classic villains in Doctor Who. So we're just playing the game of which one do you think is the least problematic? I mean, on another level, on female representation, was Lady Adrasta really a good female representation? Because I loved watching her, and I loved the actress. It was a powerful performance, but she lost it. She lost it, which is not good if you're talking about representation. Margaret Blaine had that lovely, quiet quality, very Machiavellian. And in Boomtown, that chat with the doctor in the restaurant on Cardiff Bay, loved that. And she was cheeky, in human bondage, and they went off to the restaurant and all the rest of it. And of course, I met her slightly. She saw me vomiting in a Newcastle hotel when it was a convention. And slightly unfortunate. I had a problem with my breakfast, and she watched, the Slovene was watching me. So I might marry her in the end. I think I'll marry the Slovene. And regarding Snog, I think the dangerous one for me is Madame Kavarian, so I'll avoid her. And if I'm marrying Margaret Blaine, I will just kiss quickly Lady Adrasta before she pilfers me for middle and she shouts in my ear. There you go. That's my level of it, Rachel. You see, our time scale.
Okay.
Time scales. What you reckoning? You wiped out the room. You can say what you
here's
want.
Here's the thing. There are a lot of British terms that don't translate into American English, so I actually am not quite sure what snogging means. But if I had to guess, mine is not currently on this screen. So it would be Perry.
Perry.
I agree.
You remember that pink bikini? I still haven't forgotten that. And the fact that I remember that it was pink disturbs me.
Well, and I do remember from Creature from the Pit, Arlene Way, who was the old mother in Unearthly Child. It's mentioned by Peter there. It's.
I would say I would probably go with Margaret because she's very sly. You don't often get sly women in Doctor Who like that. She's very tricky. I'd avoid the other two; they might blow my head off. But yeah.
Lethal. Are you okay, Hugh? Have you made your mind up on these?
Yeah. So I mean, I'm a big fan of Margaret. I mean, stuff like that scene in the Restaurant. I love, and I also love the actress. I think she's
Oh, she's brilliant.
a
Very good.
superb actress. Uh, I think she's beautiful. And straight. So yeah, I'm marrying Sora almost. Again, Marion Crevorian is played by a hugely beautiful actress who I love. So therefore, I will snog her. So therefore, I'll have to avoid the other one simply on that basis.
Yeah.
Those are two beautiful. This is unusual for me. I have to say for this, Bren, because that's got three women, and therefore it makes it much easier for me to do this.
This is it, and it's very unusual for me to
Being
do.
straight, it's like
I
it's
make
just
it
a
hard. For
thing.
you. I make it so hard for you. So here's one more quick one because I'm trying to bring in characters now. You don't have to necessarily play the game, but you could actually just see how the characters come into it because historical figures in Doctor Who. We had some great ones. We've had Elizabeth I in Day of the Doctor. We had Queen Nefertiti in, was that Dinosaurs on a Spaceship?
Dinosaur spaceship, yeah.
Yeah. And then we had Madame Pompadour in The Girl in the Fireplace. Again, you can play the game, or it can prompt you to think of great historical figures I haven't listed here, who have been in Doctor Who from Agatha Christie onwards, and made the show better and or worse. I mean, these three female representations did their work. I mean, David Tennant quite liked Madame Pompadour, didn't he, for a little while? And
Yeah.
and I loved the story. That timey-wimey effect was great. But in one of our shows, Sex in the TARDIS, as we clickbaity called it, we did say it was problematic because as an ex-teacher, the Doctor saw her as a little girl. And then, of course, and I'm sorry, but it just looks problematic. But does anyone want to play the game?
I'll pick from the screen. I'll pick Madame Pompadour. And the reason being is that The Girl in the Fireplace is probably my favorite modern New Who story. I think it was absolutely beautiful, and I think everything came together at the right time. And I absolutely love that episode. So yeah, I'll pick Madame Pompadour.
I agree with timescales, Madame Pompadour.
Yeah. I think she was gorgeous. I have to say, I think she was gorgeous.
She'd be like a great companion had we actually known,
Right.
historically we'd know that she's like not going to die, whatever, but she'd have been a great companion. But I think she had to die.
Yeah, not just about her being a companion. The thing about that as an episode is she was an extraordinary woman. She was just unbelievable. You want to read what she wrote? It's extraordinary. But it just then becomes the thing of what we watch. It's absolutely unbelievable. I think it's one of the best Doctor Who things ever. I think watching it is beautiful. I do think there is a grooming aspect into it, which we have to sort of like deal with, and that's fine. But utterly beautiful as an episode. It's extraordinary.
I don't think it'll ever be outdone.
No, I know it was it. This is when Doctor Who was still surprising us when it came back. There were some lovely touches that you didn't really see it doing Classic Who, and it was quite emotional, that one. I just want to throw in on this debate, which there's so many different angles, but I want to address one of them now, which is as more female characters are represented and are impactful in Doctor Who, and that's not a problem. Has it created a problem, though, in a different respect, which is it's made Doctor Who a bit soap opera? The emotional discussions, which women are better at overall. I'm going to fall into the minefield of generalizations, but you know what I'm saying. Generally, if you watch soap operas, they always talk about good female representation, brilliant, strong female characters. It tends to be the score. And has Doctor Who left sci-fi behind and gone more into soap opera because of its higher female representation or because of something else? I'm just wondering, it's all these entanglements, the Rose doctor, the Martha wanting the doctor, the Donna having a child who's linked with the doctor, and we've gone into this murky territory. I'm putting it out there because I do find it interesting how New Who has taken us in a slightly different direction, and great, more female representation, some very interesting female characters, but has it stirred the pot regarding what the show is out about now? Because the
I would have to
church-
say something.
Yeah, go
I'm
on.
sorry. I would have to say something else. I believe the show has I don't believe female representation in the show has changed the show. I believe that the show has just morphed itself generally and has changed over time. Whereas Doctor Who always has changed over time. And if you take a look at the Jodie Whittaker era, for example, some people may feel that they didn't care for the Jodie Whittaker era because the Doctor was a female. But as far as the program changing over time, a really drastic example of the Jodie Whittaker era was that the music changed drastically, and it changed the entire feel of the show. And if you ask any musician or composer how important music is to television or film or stage, they would all say it's the most important thing, coming from the viewpoint of a musician. Now, with the Jodie Whittaker era, the music that BBC ordered from Segun Akinola was so much different than any previous Doctor Who music in the past that it made the show feel very, very different. But it didn't have anything to do with female representation in the series. It was something else. So there's my answer to that, Brendan. Something else.
And this is why I love our panels, because we keep promising on the Sense Sphere that we have people who disagree with each other respectfully. We have diverse opinion. We don't do echo chamber. And so I'm coming from a different area there, but that's the whole point, isn't it? That's the whole point. Where do you stand on this one, Cinnamon? Am I barking up the wrong tree? Because some people agree with me in the thread, some don't.
Well, just sticking with the Russell T Davies era, well, his first era, which is the era that I grew up on. That was where I jumped on board. People say that it's very soapy. I mean, perhaps. I mean, I've always just thought it was just very grounded. Do I think it's soapy because of women? No, I just think that's Russell. I think that's just him. He loves soaps. I think he wrote on Coronation Street, didn't he? He comes from that kind of background, so I think that's definitely his inspiration there. But again, I guess I like that. I like the whole, I guess if you grew up on the classic show, focusing too much on, a companion's family might be a bit, distracting. I liked it. I loved all that stuff, of Jackie. I thought she was a fantastic character. She comes off as harsh at the beginning, but you can understand why she does that. Okay, yeah, she just slapped the Doctor, but she's a mother. Her daughter's ran away. A 19-year-old daughter's been missing for a year, and then this random middle-aged bloke turns up with her. I think you would be a little bit shaken too, But then she grows in it. But then you see how out of series 1, and then you see her. What is it in Love and Monsters when she's talking to Elton, and she says something along the lines of, I'll do anything, to protect them. And she says them, not just she doesn't just say the daughter. She says she includes the Doctor in that as well. It's something like that, and it's a really great little moment for that. And I think that was the last thing she filmed as well, that episode, if I believe correctly. I love all that extra stuff. Is it soapy?
Yeah.
Possibly, but I love it. I think it enriches it. I think it's one of those things that made it modern. It doesn't need it, but it was a modern. It was Doctor Who in the 2000s. I try and think.
I'm just wondering.
Could you
I'm
have
just
gotten away
wondering
with
if
it
it needs.
in the 70s?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if it needs to now move on again. Like we had UNIT for years, and in a way that was like a military soap. With the relationships there. Yeah, I'd push it.
And then I suppose we did, didn't we? Because we got Amy, and we got Clara, and we got less of their family. Okay, we had Rory, but he kind of was added on with her.
Yeah.
and even recently we've got Ruby, and okay, now we're seeing her family again. So I think we kind of went away from that for a while, and now it seems like we're maybe going backwards to that. So I guess we'll have to see how
Yeah.
that works out.
But this time it's going to be interesting because we've got a foster mother.
Yes.
So that's going to be a different, unique sort of relationship as well. And we didn't
Another thing
actually
to
see
add
in the
is that
special
we've
what it would have
seen
been
with the
like
next one.
if she hadn't had it.
Sorry,
Go on.
sorry, I thought you finished. My apologies.
Sorry. What did you
I was
say?
just going to say, I was just going to add on that the next door neighbor, Ruby's next door neighbor, is it Cherry, the older lady?
Oh, it's not Anita Dobson. Sorry,
Anita Dobson's character.
Mrs.
Because there's a
Flood, yeah.
set
Mrs. Flood.
photo
That's it.
of Anita Dobson.
Mrs. Flood.
Yeah, there's a picture of her in the Miami episode
Yes.
with the new
Yes, the
companion.
1950s.
It's Shooty with a
Yeah.
new companion. Shooty with a new
Yeah.
companion, but Anita Dobson's character's there. So that's again that links back to the whole what's going on with Ruby then, because it's like, well, if Ruby's not in that episode, where's she, and then why is her family there? Do you know what I mean? I think I might have mentioned this before, but it would be a bit strange, wouldn't it, if the 10th Doctor was traveling with Martha, and then he still nipped back for a cup of tea with Jackie every now and then. That'd be a bit awkward, wouldn't it, having the family or Mickey having him pop out. I mean, well, I know Mickey would eventually become her wife, but
goodness.
we've
You're
got
getting
trouble.
upstaged. You're getting upstaged. What's going on? It's your bedtime. What are you doing?
I'm sorry to disturb you, Mr. Brendan.
Well, you're going to get smacked for this. What's going on?
I just want to remind you about the viewers to like and subscribe.
Oh, that's
to
true.
the sense because you haven't mentioned it once.
I haven't mentioned. Normally, Timescales tells me to like and subscribe and remind people. And I always forget.
Yeah.
And I've forgotten again. Thank you. Have you got out of bed to tell me that? Why did you get dressed to do that?
No, these are my pajamas.
Are they?
Yeah.
You wear them all the time. You need them in the wash.
It's the only clothes I've got.
Which sounds like Doctor Who doesn't wear the every episode. Is it your kind of Peter Davison uniform?
Who?
You're more like a kind of Earthbound Adric.
I need a badge.
Oh yeah, you need a badge. You need a badge when you do something right.
Can I just say my favorite companion is Yaz.
Is there any irony in what you're saying, Sonny Jim?
I mean, she's such a great actor and such a believable police officer. I thought she was
She's
great.
the best
Rachel,
police officer I've ever seen.
Rachel, this is Walkie Stroker, Walkie by name, Walkie by nature. In other words, we would say Yaz is amazing. Go away, clear off you.
Don't forget to like and subscribe, and everyone. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Don't like and subscribe to you. Get to bed.
Bye.
Yeah. Don't milk
It's
it.
Sundays that you have school in the morning.
Honestly, I hate being upstaged by them stupid things. So, we were talking about Mrs. Flood.
Yes,
but I am intrigued whether, okay, we've done it now. I'm not knocking it, but therefore, do we move on and do something different? And as Rachel said, you think there's another interesting angle. Are you talking as an actress thinking, oh, this is different, this is a bit tasty? Or are you just thinking, no, as a viewer, this is just an interesting way to go?
I think it'd be an interesting way to go because we've not done a foster family or adoptive family or anything like that. So it'd be interesting to see how they work that into the story. Whether or not that's a bit soapy, left to be seen. But I don't mind. So
and all of this is about. So I always look at it in the sense that whenever you had Ian and Barbara, which I think are the greatest characters are written, it was fine because they were explaining to you what they were. They were explanatory characters. That's what they weren't actual real characters in any sense of the word. So it's good if we're going to see someone who has a family that is foster family, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's taken seriously and it becomes important. And it cannot be just having dyspraxia when you fall off a bike.
Yeah. Can I ask everybody, we're going to finish soon, don't worry. Can I ask everybody on this whole big topic Where do I go with this now? We've talked about in front of the camera, but behind the camera things have changed too. And Rachel Talalay, director, has done 8 Doctor Who stories, and she did an article recently in the Radio Times. Doctor Who's female directors have defied the odds and done well. And if you see on the right there, she mentions 3 particular stories: Blink, Midnight, and Heaven Sent. And they all have something in common. They have female directors. And I just wanted to kind of reflect for a moment on your memories of those 3 stories, because Heaven Sent I adored because it was clever. It was so tight on the editing to make that Shepherd's Boy musical kind of climax work. How do you get away with one actor and no real dialogue with anybody else? Therefore, in some ways, is there any engagement? Stephen Moffat was worried about it, wasn't he? And he trusted Rachel Talalay with that one. And I just think, wow, the editing and the tightness of that and that repetitive cycle to make that work really challenged that female director. Blink, of course, I don't know about you, but Blink, wow. I mean, to actually pick for and cast for the role, is it Carey Mulligan, who now is big in Hollywood? Wow, I mean, God, what a sell for Doctor Who, and what a character. Was it Sally Sparrow? And wow, just well done there. And that was a very cleverly put together story. And Midnight, of course, a lot of our panelists over time have mentioned Midnight. Tight.
Alice Trout.
Yeah, Alice Trout. Tight set. Good lighting. It's a monster you can't see, and so Alice Troughton couldn't get around that way. So where does she make the drama? Again, good
I think she was
casting.
pregnant at the time as well. I think on the commentary, I think she was pregnant at the time when they were doing all that.
And I must shout out, it's Hetty MacDonald who did who directed the Blink episode. Has anyone got any kind of particular memories of those stories about how well they kind of impacted? Since we're talking about good female representation and some damn good directors there.
Yeah, all excellent stories. And I actually had no idea that the directors were female on all of those. If Brendan, if you'd allow me to go just a little off topic here, so what you were saying made me think of something when you said women behind the scenes and off screen. And I just have 2 words, and I hope I say her name right. Delia Derbyshire. Now, you talk about a powerful woman in Doctor Who right there.
Absolutely.
I mean, well, the musicianship, but then on top of that, well, we all know, don't we, how I really still don't quite understand how she did it, because it was the cut-ins, and my God, the cleverness level and the patience and that process that she, unbelievable, and was so creative and so unique. I mean, unbelievable. I don't know how she started that. I just don't know how she started that project. So yeah, she's a good shout out.
She was quite a complex character, wasn't she?
Yeah. And again, I'd shout out where he was going from. Verity Lambert assembled around her some quality people.
I don't think you get Barbara without Verity. That's my... Yeah, I do not think you get Barbara as a character without Verity Lambert doing this and going, we have to have someone who is intelligent. And you, the whole thing with whenever you look at it, so you have a male character, which is fine because it's easy in 1962, 1963. You have an easy character who is the older character. But the extraordinary thing that then happened was to have Ian and Barbara. And Ian and Barbara worked extraordinarily well together, because in that first episode, it's not about a man and a woman being different. It's about a man and a woman being exactly the same as teachers. And it's extraordinary. That's really deeply unusual for 1963.
Yeah. So, timescales, you took us down Delia Derbyshire behind the scenes. Anybody? What grabbed you the most, Rachel? Blink, Midnight, or Heaven Sent, where do you think? I mean, as an actor, where do you think? Oh my God, that director was on the money. That was skill. That was good.
I think it would have to be Midnight, because Midnight is a bottled episode. It all happens in one space, and she's got a lot of actors all in a tight and close space, and she's also got to deal with an unseen, villain monster. That's difficult to pull off. And you've got to light it right. You've got to create the right intensity in order to be able to do that. And obviously the acting was stellar in that episode. Some of the best acting I've ever seen in Doctor Who. But but just the way that it was filmed and the camera angles and just it all just being so tight and compact, it just made for a really good visual episode, as well as the writing for it.
And what was her name?
That bit wherever they switch, suddenly it's a switch to full focus on Leslie Sharp looking at the camera. Is one of the greatest pieces of cutting I've ever seen.
Yeah, and the close-ups in it as well.
Yeah,
and you had to get close.
And the casting. I mean, look, you had, and I don't know all the names, but the lad who played Merlin.
Colin Morgan.
Yep. Leslie Sharp, of course.
Les Sharp.
David Troughton. I mean, and the lady from EastEnders,
Lindsay Coulson.
Yeah. And there's two other actors there, and I'm trying to remember the names, but it looked like a really cleverly put together cast. It looked as though they'd made it like an ensemble piece where they really had practiced this to death. I mean, how would they have approached that, Rachel?
Oh my goodness. They would have had to have rehearsed that first, I think, in order to be able to pull that off. I have no idea. In all honesty, I would have loved to have seen the behind the scenes footage in like the Doctor Who Confidential, but I never watched the Doctor Who Confidential. But yeah, they would have had to have gone to a read through. They would have started off with doing that, and they would have had to get it as down pat as they could in the read through, particularly with the copycat stuff.
Yeah.
And the mimicking stuff, because that's incredibly. I've performed Carol Churchill plays, and if you know a Carol Churchill plays, you're constantly overlapping all the time, and you
all of that. Serious Money is the great sort of like bit of this, but there we are.
Yeah.
Sorry, yes.
Yeah, you just. It's so incredibly difficult to get right, and you think that you're accidentally cutting someone off, but you're not. And you're like, oh wait, hang on a minute, is it me? Is it you? What's going on? And so they would have had to have rehearsed that mega, like a lot, in order to do that, to get it ready for filming. And even then, when they're filming it, they, obviously they can break it down when they're filming it, but they would have still had to then rehearse it whilst do rehearsal takes so that the cameramen can practice, and they would have probably done like 20 million takes.
And it would have been, and the placement and the camera choices, because as you say, it needed to be quite close. It was a close set anyway.
Yeah.
The difficult choices, and I bet she was very limited in many choices she could make, but she made the best of it. Now, I know this is one of your favorite stories, Cinnamon, isn't it? Midnight.
Absolutely. It's a lot of people I've listened to.
Before I let you go, though, Midnight, Heaven Sent, Blink. Which one is your all-time out of those three?
Oh, Midnight, without a doubt.
Okay.
Blink is great, but as a Doctor Who story, would I show it to someone? Possibly. I mean, I have done, but it's gonna have the Doctor in it, and I think Heaven Sent. It's a fantastic episode, but I feel like it loses its charm on a rewatch. But with Midnight, I think I listened to the audio commentary because they recently released the Blu-ray of series 1 to 4 again. I think they had some issues with the previous releases, so they redid the collection.
Yeah.
And I just to test it out, I just stuck on Midnight and noticed that they said audio commentary. I thought, oh, I've never listened to that before. I never really pay attention to audio commentaries. Although this is one of my favorite stories. It's probably my second on my top. It's in my top 3. So I put it on, and I believe they were talking about how everyone seems to think that it was a cheaper episode because of the smaller. It's a small location. But I think or Alice was talking about how actually it cost a little bit because you've got these aren't normally, if in a traditional episode, characters like Biff, Kane, and Jethro would be a smaller minor character, but every single character there is a huge important character, and they're there for the duration of the entire story.
Yeah.
It's they're not there for like 5 minutes and get killed off.
Yeah.
Well, apart from the driver and the mechanic, but apart from those, every near enough every character's got a huge part.
If anything,
and they all
John is
play,
the minor in that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Entirely.
Pretty much every near enough every character, bar again the driver and the driver and the mechanic, and even then they important because they need to be killed off. Because if they're not killed off, then the danger's not there because then they need to be stuck, don't they? They need to be stuck. They need to be trapped. So they set up that. It's a fantastic story. And again, I think she said as well, Alice, about how it was quite difficult, and she was under a lot of pressure because she wanted to make a really good episode, both for the sake of making a good episode, and she wanted to do it for Russell as well. And she felt like she didn't want to let anyone down. So I think that kind of drove her on. And I think that's the thing, with pressure. It can make you do good things as well. And I'm just looking at there's one here as well. Attack of the Cybermen, Paul and Moore.
Yes.
There's so many great contributions from women. I always look at, and I think not just me, but Verity Lambert is the mother of Doctor Who, and of course, like Timescale mentioned there, got D.A. Derbyshire as well. We couldn't have the music. We wouldn't have the iconic theme tune. I mean, okay, yeah, Ron Grainer wrote the thing, but he's always. I think he even said, didn't he, later on that he said, "Okay, I wrote it, but she made it." He always credited her. Yeah, and we wouldn't really have it without her. And what's Doctor Who without its iconic theme tune? And it's and of course we've had a Waris Hussein, director of Asian descent, and we've had 2 gay showrunners. There's always been diversity there within the show. It's always been there. It's always been, there's always been, lots of female contributions to the show. Yeah. It's always been a show that anyone could have watched. There was never a barrier. If people felt like that, then it's unfortunate. But there was no reason why anyone, a woman or otherwise, anyone was always felt welcome. The thing about Doctor Who was it was always that kind of show that attracted outsiders anyway.
Yeah.
Certainly, that's how I felt.
Maybe this is a good point to actually say, we've discussed as much as we can, different female representation, had a bit of fun along the way. Has anyone got anything to finish on that they haven't had to say yet or managed to say about this subject?
Only, I know, it's just because I want to reiterate this as much as possible. Whenever they cast Jacqueline Hill as Barbara, they created something important because she was not there because of just being a woman. She was there as an exact representation of a teacher or whatever you wanted to see. So people watched her and thought, that's like the teacher I go to school with. That's extraordinary. It's not what people were doing then. It is brilliant. There we are.
Well, thank you for that. And thank you for tonight. First of all, I want to just say, and I'll go around the panel a bit here because there's a few people have got their own channels and all the rest of it. Me and Timescales, we did a show a while back now, didn't we? And I really enjoyed it. But gosh, how many have you done, Timescales? You've got loads, haven't you, on your stream?
76. That's funny you should ask. I counted that yesterday. I enjoy interviewing people that are in arts and performing arts. And being a Doctor Who fan, I very much enjoy interviewing people that have been involved in Doctor Who or just simply love Doctor Who. So you can see all of my interviews on YouTube. Just type in the Timescales interviews and you'll pull them up right there.
Cool. Well, obviously, thanks for inviting us on and thanks for supporting our channel. And please come back on when you can. I know everyone's busy.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And of course, Rachel, if you want to give a shout out to your channel.
Yeah, my channel is at Chat Don't Shout. I cover all sorts of perhaps some controversial topics and some pop culture, and we like to talk on that channel. We don't like to shout at each other, which is what happens a lot in today's society. So come and join us over there.
Well, and Cinnamon, you also, if you want to give a shout out to your channel.
Yeah, I've just recently started mine not that long ago. I always talked it up, and said I was going to do it, and then I never did, and then I finally got around to doing it. I think the fifth Doctor said something like that. You think you put it off, and the next thing you know, 5,000 years later, but I finally got around to doing it, and I've had very success so far. I've had a few guests on my few of my live streams already. I've done a few videos, plan to make another one soon. It's primarily a Doctor Who channel, but it's all things pop culture. It's not just Doctor Who, because it's you don't need to get bogged down in one thing. It's nice to sort of talk about something else for a change, which is something that I'm enjoying doing. I'm planning on getting into Star Trek. So that's a new adventure that I'm looking forward to getting into.
Never go there. No. Brendan, is it worth you making sure that you put all the links into the other channels for other people on this? So on that would be really good.
Yeah, we've started to do that because in the last few days I've started to really kind of, I've advertised timescales before, and of course we will, but Rachel and me, I've only just been talking a few days, so certainly. So it is all it's a moving tapestry. This, so thank you for your time, everybody. I really enjoyed that. It was a difficult one. You need to get it right. I don't like people to kind of view our channel in any dodgy way. We're passionate about Doctor Who, and I will go back to this. Passionate to show that fandom can debate and disagree, but respect each other and stay friends. This is the point. There's more that unites us in the universe than divides us, and the Senssphere are determined to keep it that way. Thanks to panel, thanks to my friends, and to your friends online and watching. This has been a hell of a journey. We've done 30 shows. Our peak was 1.6K. I think we all have a nice flash in the pan one. 412 views per show is our average at the moment. 164 subs. This has been one hell of a ride. I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying making all these friends. And so please stick with us. Thanks, panel. Good night, everybody. And we'll see you hopefully on Tuesday, where we'll have the final word on the Star Beast. Time is, passed. Let's have a good look at it. Misfire, good relaunch. See you Tuesday at 4.
Thanks, Brendan.
It is.